Hey, what's going on, everyone? I am very, very excited about this week's episode because I have my good buddy Evan. I always say this wrong, man. It's not Rumble, it's Rundle, right?
Right. That's right.
Yeah, it's because I used to be like, well, I'm still a big boxing fan, and it's like whenever I hear the Rundle, it's like in the back of my mind, I'm hearing like, get ready to rumble. But let's get ready to rumble with Evan Rundle. How about that?
Love it. Love it. Coined Carlos 2025.
Yeah, exactly, man. Hey, I'm very, very excited. A good friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours, about I don't know, maybe like I think it was like a year ago. He's like, "Hey, man, you got to connect with Evan. You got to connect with Evan. I'm having an event at Evan's place because Evan has a really cool rooftop deck in the building that he lives in. So my buddy was like, "Hey, I'm connecting with Evan. I got to connect you guys. You guys got to chat." And the moment we started speaking, I'm like, dude, like Evan has to be like one of my go-to persons that I can rely on. So I'll tell you, what he'll tell you all about it in just a second. But I'm very, very excited about you jumping on the call. Evan, I know that you have a busy schedule, man, so I appreciate you setting some time aside. So give us a quick introduction about what it is that you do. Give us a quick intro, about yourself, about your company, and let us hear it.
Thanks, Carlos. Thanks for having me on. And yeah, that was a great introduction. That event you're referring to, we're actually having another one next Wednesday. So I don't know when this is going out, but July 16th. If you can make it, come on by. Rooftop Radiant downtown, 5:30 to 8:30. Um,
Awesome.
and CEO and founder of Novik. It's a company I started 10 years ago by accident. I wasn't really trying to be
Mm,
a business owner. It was just to make some money on the side while I was going on acting auditions and fell in love with it. This is before really anyone knew what Airbnb was. It was kind of a startup still. And it was a great way for me to combine my creativity with business acumen and actually make money rather than just going on
yeah.
auditions for nothing.
Mm.
Grew it into a multi-million dollar company. And today we're in five different markets. We've got over 250 doors under master lease management and construction ownership.
Okay.
And we basically operate anything from a boutique hotel with studios up to a nine-bedroom mansion, and all for the purpose of short-term rental and hotels.
Yeah, so I mean, and that is such a key thing because I have a few buddies that own property management companies. And when uh, some of our clients will be like, "Hey, can you guys do Airbnbs?" And all of them would say the same thing, like, "Hey, we don't touch those. We don't touch those. There's so much work. We don't touch them." And then Evan shows up and he's like, "Hey, give me all your Airbnbs. I'll take it from there." So, tell us a little bit about like the full spectrum of the services that you guys provide, because what I want to make sure that my listeners are aware of is that there are services like the one that you and your company provide that when someone is thinking about growing their real estate portfolio and buying investment properties, they're like, yeah, this will be cool for an Airbnb, but I don't want to deal with the Airbnb headaches. So that is where Evan comes in. So give us more, let's take the magnifying glass out and give us more a more in-depth look, under the hood look, to what it is that the exact services that you and your company provide.
Absolutely. And, couldn't agree more. I was one of those people too when I first started, and I was doing everything myself, right? Because it's a job. People, you hear all the buzzwords and, oh, Airbnb passive income. Not true. And so when I started, same thing. I was cleaning toilets. I was dealing with parties at 2 a.m., late check-ins, late checkouts, the circuit breakers breaking, getting a handyman, the toilets overflowing, all those things.
Yeah.
And I almost burned out. And so rather than quit, I decided to just scale it and make a business out of it. And so I've literally worked in every single department, right? I've
Mm.
cleaned toilets, I've built furniture, I've mounted TVs, I've painted walls, I've done customer service, pricing analysis, everything. And then I basically find, hired, and trained people to do all of those things. And so my company offers a full swath of services because we've done it all over the last
Right.
decade, and it's all
Right.
vertically integrated and in-house. So everything from the, like I said, like the pricing management, will find and identify properties for people. So if you're an investor
Oh,
and you don't know where to buy or what to buy, we
right.
will literally soup to nuts get the deal, get the lending, get the broker, get the realtor, get the contractor, the
Mm.
designer, everything, underwrite it for you. position it for you. Should it be a 3 bedroom? Should it be a 4 bedroom? Should it have a hot
Right.
tub? Where should the hot tub go? We do all the pre-development with you, and then we operate it for you and cash flow it with you. Some of these deals
Man,
we
I
even
love it.
partner on. Some of these deals we
Right.
invest in. Some of these deals we syndicate. So it really is a full service 0 to 100 short-term rental and hotel operation.
Dude, I love it. I love it because I mean, I can't think of anyone else that does that kind of thing. And the fact that, not only are you managing the property on behalf of the owner, but you're also, being a resource to the owner where the owner can be like, hey, help me find something that makes sense because that is the biggest question,
Hmm.
especially with all these Airbnb regulations and changes and like for example we're both here in San Diego, like there are so many restrictions right now around some of these in some of these neighborhoods and things like that, like what's in store in the future for Airbnbs, all that kind of thing. It is very key that you have someone that will guide you by the hand like Evan, so that they can help you make a good and a smart, educated decision. What are some of the things, Evan, that you're seeing out there in the current marketplace, as far as especially here in the local San Diego market, that it could be like changes, restrictions, things that are happening. I know that there's a big change coming up in September 8th, about something to do with like the reservations and cancellations, or the operation expenses, something like that. Give us some of the things that you're forecasting for the Airbnb industry, both nationally and here locally in San Diego.
Fantastic questions. So let's start macro and we'll go micro.
Yeah.
So on a macro level, everything is changing and you can't do what you did in 2020 or 2022 and expect to be successful in 2025 and 2026. It's just not possible.
Right.
What's interesting, and I'll go back to macro, on a micro, we're actually seeing the amount of available licenses in San Diego go up. So
Mm,
they were going down for a long time, meaning there was
right.
5,500 available. It got down to like six or 700. Now it's back up to 1,000, and it's because old Airbnbs are failing. So
Mm,
this whole notion, and this is nationally, of the Airbnb bust is real, but in the
mm,
context of outdated, tired product. So it's the same thing with construction or any other product out there. If you don't adapt and you don't stay current, you get lost and you get left behind. And so what we're seeing nationally is these hobby hosts, the people that didn't
right.
hire a designer, didn't do it the right way, could make money, are no longer making money and they're giving up. What we're
Mm,
seeing succeed are professionals, people that, and professionals that are catering to the wants of the traveler, not just like throwing up, an IKEA decor painting, right?
right.
So amenities, hot tubs. We're seeing a wellness boom that we've never seen before, where if you have a sauna or a cold plunge or the ability for them to do yoga, we're seeing a huge transition to that. And last thing I'll say nationally is content. Content is king.
Mhm.
So if you start designing your Airbnbs around the end user of podcasters like us, content creators, where's the selfie wall? Where's the Instagram moment?
Yeah.
How can they convert their trip into bragging rights for themselves and us?
Right.
And how does that translate into revenue for you? That's where hosts have to start thinking. You
Mm.
have to cater to the younger group travelers that want to turn your property into content.
I love it. Yeah, because I mean, even in like for restaurants and bars
Yep.
anything in the food industry, like yeah, this restaurant is a decent one, but it looks very outdated as opposed to this, let's go to this other one that maybe is not as good as restaurant A, but it's it's so Instagrammable, as they say, right? Like oh my God, yeah, yeah, because and then you see people taking there's a neon sign in the back that people keep posting stuff right there on the neon sign. So it does make a big difference. And it's funny because you had mentioned that you had mentioned the word passive, and that is so true because some people will see this kind of like, yeah, I have my regular W-2 work and I kind of want to do this just to have passive income. But there's nothing passive about running an Airbnb. I mean, that's the biggest thing. Like, if you're going to run the Airbnb, there's nothing passive about it. And that's why your unique value proposition that you have and that your company has, is it's something that's that's impressive because you take the whole sweat, blood and tears out of the people's hands, and you take on that responsibility yourself. So that is something really really cool. Now talk to us about the micro as far as here in San Diego. So you're seeing the number of licenses go up. Are you seeing more restrictions on some areas? I suppose, like for example, like I knew for a long time, like downtown San Diego was kind of like a no-no. Is that now something that is more acceptable that you're seeing out there? And then, what is that big change that's happening in September that has to do with like the administrative fee or something like that?
Yeah, so there's a bunch of big changes, so I'm not sure which one you're talking about in
Okay.
particular. I know one of them that's happening that already did happen was the TOT, so transient occupancy tax. Essentially, and this is kind of crazy, the closer you are to the convention center, the higher TOT you have to pay. Now, I understand the pros and cons of that, but that's kind of wild. And
Mm-hmm.
it's actually making it much harder for people to operate. The other thing that we're seeing in downtown specifically is it was all of the condos and the HOAs and also the high
Right.
rises that were anti-Airbnb because there was bad actors, bad hosts, people were throwing parties, buildings were ending
Right.
up in the news. You had people throwing beer bottles off of balconies. It was crazy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what we do is we get entire buildings and we don't have that kind of mixed use in downtown where there's like a little old lady on the corner and then someone above them that's, a corner unit and someone above them
Right.
chaos. So we just do the whole building and you're above restaurants. So our guests aren't bothering anybody
Mm-hmm.
and it feels and looks and acts more like a hotel. And that's the responsible way to do it. And most of our properties are zoned hotel. So in downtown, you get to circumvent the license because you are a hotel. The license is only needed when you're a residential property. But if you're commercial and you
Mm.
can get the zoning and the use, you don't need a license.
Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. And when you say that you get the entire building, like for example, like the Harbor Club, for example, and I know that for those of you listening, like I'm going hyper local here in San Diego just to kind of expand on this a little bit more. But when you get the entire building, like you reach out to the HOA and get the building approved, or is it a completely different strategy?
Great question. So we don't mess with HOAs. In my
Okay.
entire portfolio, I only have one unit that has an HOA, and it's a condo
Mm,
hotel. So it's actually designed
gotcha.
for that. So rather than
Right.
go to the HOAs, we do multifamily and commercial. So,
Okay.
for example, the development that I'm doing in downtown right now, the Dalton, is two commercial buildings. One of them used to be a hotel, literally like 100 years ago in the 20s. So
Gotcha.
we're just restoring them to their original use as hotels, but they look, act, and feel like Airbnbs. So they have kitchens, living rooms, dining rooms. So for the end user, they're still getting the benefit of an Airbnb short-term rental experience. But
Hmm.
for us and for our investors and for everybody that's in the project, it's a hotel. So
It's a
it's kind of the
hotel.
best of both worlds. Mhm.
Gotcha, gotcha. No, that makes a lot of sense. Now, when it comes to Airbnbs, what are some like rule of thumbs per se where you're like, hey, you know what, this type of property would make a great Airbnb, stay away from this other type of property. Because so one of the things, and the reason I'm asking this question is because one of the things that I was seeing maybe back in the COVID days is that people were buying properties in, like for example, going back to being hyper local here in San Diego, um in like very suburbia areas, East Lake, Santee, El Cajon, like kind of far from the action per se, and they were renting them as Airbnbs, and now I'm seeing a decline. I don't know on your end, but I'm seeing a decline on Airbnbs for properties in those neighborhoods that are, 20, 35 minutes away from, all the touristy stuff that you want to do when you're in San Diego. Is that something that you're also seeing, or what are some of the big no-nos? What are some of the big rule of thumbs? Like if it meets this criteria, you gotta buy this property and use it for Airbnb purposes.
Love it. I talk buy box all day. So let's get into it. Yeah. So
Yes.
You said a lot of important things, and I want to talk about the ones far away that are 20,
Mhm.
30 minutes out, and then I want to talk about the ones that are walkable because they
Sure.
operate, look, act, and feel differently.
Mm,
So I have a lot of units that are in the middle of nowhere that, for all intents and purposes, don't make sense as Airbnbs. But creating that Airbnb as its own location, as its own event, as its own experience
experience.
will
Right.
attract a certain kind of traveler. People that don't want to be in the middle of the chaos, that want to be
Right.
20 minutes away and drive, but feel like they're excluded, or, excluded is not the right word, but secluded is a better word, right? But if everything is built in there, game room, pool table, pool, hot tub, pergola, so all of that, then you're
Yeah.
basically creating their own destination, right?
Hmm.
Versus if you're walkable, which is another amazing thing that we invest in, well, that's a different target, right? The people that want to go to everything around that area and sometimes just want a place to crash. They just want a place to hang
Exactly.
their hat at night, right?
Right.
Now, if you can combine both of them, have the experience destination, but also in a walkable area, now you're one of one, and that's what we're focused on now and in the future, right? Is taking that kind of experiential destination and building
Right.
them in walkable, close to the water, close to downtown, close to the stadium, close to whatever, and then you get the best of both worlds. But
Yeah,
both
no,
work usually.
right. No, and it makes sense because a lot of people, like for example, here locally in San Diego, you might just want a place to go, staycation at, and it's like, I just want to kind of get away and just, turn the phone off and have some type of just unwind, so that is the experience that you were describing. And I think that back then, a lot of these folks that were buying in like very suburbia areas, they were just buying just for buying it and Airbnb in it purposes. And now, I don't see, and I remember this because literally I grew up in Rancho Bernardo, which is kind of like suburbia per se. And my neighbor across the street had and they lived in that property for many years, and then they moved out. They were elderly, so they moved. They went to go live with one of their kids, and then they turned that into an Airbnb. And then we drove by the property, I don't know, like 2 months ago, and it turns out that it was already sold. And I'm like, yeah, it's because it was just like the house. Like there was no experience, like no hot tub, no pergolas, or no nothing, no podcast room, or it was just it was just your typical house that was being rented. And maybe back then, because people didn't have that many options, they would say, hey, you know what, well, it's about $50 or $70 cheaper per night. I'll drive the extra 20 minutes or whatever. But now, with all the options that people have, I
Yep.
think those are fading out slowly, slowly as time goes by. Now let me ask you this, Evan. So tell us a little bit about how you started, because it's a really cool story. I mean, and by the way, folks, Evan is a musician, singer, actor. So I definitely want to get into that a little bit. But tell us a little bit about how you started, and then how you were kind of like, because it sounds like you were managing some Airbnbs, you were investing in some Airbnbs, and now you just threw a wrench at me, like I'm developing like entire buildings.
Yeah.
We're building stuff from scratch, new constructions. Like, how do you how did your business model grow into that, and how do you scale into that?
Great questions. You want me to kind of like how I got started, like the origin story, and then going into
Yeah,
okay.
let's do it.
Um, well, like I think I mentioned earlier, I was an actor and singer-songwriter in LA. And the first time I ever went there was in 2014, and I stayed at an Airbnb. And my host at the time, super great guy, shout out to G, you know who you are. I reached out to him and I'm like, hey man, this is really cool. Can I buy you lunch or beer, whatever, and pick your brain? And we actually became friends. We stayed in touch. And then when I moved out there in 2015, I actually ended up moving in with him, becoming his roommate.
Mm,
And he had 8 Airbnbs at the time, all rental arbitrage. And remember, this is 2015, so no one knew what they were. Rental arbitrage wasn't even a term. No one even said that. It was just
right.
subleasing, right? And he everything was systemized. So our whole living room was shelves with linens, and the linens were labeled queen, king, twin. We had shampoo, supplies everywhere. Literally, we lived inside of like a linens facility. And I just shouted him, and he taught me everything. And I learned from the ground up, cleaning toilets, whatever. And I took all the money I had. I got my first rental arbitrage unit, and then I went home for the holidays. And I came back with more money than I left with. And
Ah.
it's like, oh, okay, this is rad. And just reinvested, and all rental arbitrage for a while.
Okay.
And looking back, I wish I would have done it a little differently because that
Sure.
cash flow is incredible, but there's no equity. So when you've
Yeah.
got $3 million worth of furniture, but you don't own any land, what's the point of that?
Right.
And so when COVID hit, I almost lost everything. I mean, it was terrible. I lost, seven figures,
No, everyone
and
was return
um,
home.
it was awful.
Yeah.
And to in your questionnaire, to your earlier point in your questionnaire, I went from 15,000 to 15 million in 5 years, and then almost
Wow.
lost it all. So it was like
Jesus.
this, and then coming back again. And what
Man.
saved me was co-hosting. So instead
Yeah.
of that business model, which is outdated, and anybody that's like trying to get into rental arbitrage, like hats off to you. I'm rooting for you. I wish you the best. But
And then
co-host,
just to
yeah,
clarify on that, rental arbitrage is like you're leasing a place. Like, hey, I want to lease your
yeah,
place, and then you start using it as an Airbnb.
correct.
Now is that something that you have to notify
Absolutely.
the owner?
You
Well,
have
I
to
mean, I
be,
mean,
yeah,
otherwise
yeah,
you'll
yeah,
get in hot water. Like, is that something that you have to tell the owner out front? Like, hey, I want to
yeah.
lease it for this. Okay,
Highly
gotcha.
recommend. Now, a lot of hosts, myself included, will tell you at the very beginning it didn't start like that. And
Right.
when my owner found out, he didn't really care. He was like, "Cool, man, let's do it more." And it was interesting. I
Yeah.
actually was able to scale with a lot of my
Mm,
owners because remember, no one really knew what it was. You had to educate people on it back then. They're like, "Wait
right.
a minute, so you're going to rent it, and then other people are going to rent it from you?" Like it just wasn't really a thing. So today, obviously,
Exactly.
everybody knows about it. And yeah, you should definitely get permission before you do it. But like,
Absolutely.
if I'm gun to my head being honest, there's a couple that I didn't. But I
Right.
always paid my rent, and so they didn't.
Love
But
it. So
so
COVID happened,
yeah,
you lost it all, and then you're trying to co-host
yeah.
and restructure yourself. Okay.
Yeah, so almost lost it all, right? Didn't, lost a lot. But then a lot of them I was able to keep and I downsized and we kept the winners, the best ones, and we let go of the ones that weren't making a lot and then moved like all my furniture into storage and waited and then came to San Diego and a lot of the big VCs companies went BK. And so then I was able to kind of get these new units. I had the furniture ready to go, and so I was able to scale again. And through
Gotcha, gotcha.
co-hosting, which is a very different business model, rental arbitrage, you're tying up your capital in deposits, you're tying up your capital in furniture. You can't really depreciate any of it, and you don't own the property, and you're capping the landlord's NOI. Now, I'll still do
Mm,
rental arbitrage if it's a big deal, right? Like a hotel or,
gotcha.
a huge mansion that's worth it, right? So, but like little onesies and twosies, it's not really worth it. But
Okay.
co-hosting is great because the owner can buy all the furniture on credit. They get to depreciate everything. They own
Mhm.
the asset. They don't have to tie up capital on deposits, and they're not capping their NOI. So what my company does is we'll cash flow the property for the owner, but here's a value proposition that not a lot of other people do. We'll actually say, hey, what's the long-term rent that this unit can make? And if you don't make at least that, we will lower our rate. And so
Gotcha.
what's
Like a
great about
guarantee.
it's
Yeah.
like a guarantee, like a guarantee. But what's
Yeah.
different is on this model, they get access to all the upside and we protect the downside.
Right,
So
right,
it's a
right.
best of both worlds. And we don't have to tie up capital. So we win because we get cash flow. They
Yeah.
win because they get a higher NOI. No brainer.
That's a yeah, that's awesome, man. I mean, I have so many questions around that, and maybe we could do another episode and talk about
Whatever you
marketing
want, man.
and how you market to these people and what your follow-up looks like and all that, because that must be a very interesting system in itself.
Yeah.
So, I was just telling you that, a buddy of mine, he's a very successful CPA. We did an episode of The Real Estate Strategist, and he focuses on owners that own short-term rentals. And the way he started is by, he would stay at Airbnbs and just then chat with the owner. Hey, who's your CPA? Well, I don't know. My CPA is not doing. I don't think my CPA is taking good advantage of this. All right, well, let's take a look at your books. That'd be more than, and that's how he started building, and now he has scaled his business tremendously. It
Love
sounds
that.
like you have scaled your business significantly, and that you probably have some really cool systems in place to go after these owners. And I would love to pick your brain about that. Maybe on the next one we can even do a webinar on showing people what to look for when buying a short-term rental.
Let's
So
run it.
you started co-hosting,
Yep.
you started rebuilding your business at
Yep.
that point. And then how many years go by when you're like, hey, let me gather a few of my clients, or let me gather a few of my friends, and let's actually start building stuff
That's right.
and we're gonna Airbnb the crap out of every single unit in the hotel or in the building or whatever it
Uh,
is.
Kind of around the same time, because I realized that that model was not sustainable and I wasn't generating any wealth and I wasn't generating any equity, right? And so right around that same time is when I started sourcing and buying buildings, the two that I told you about that I'm developing, stuff in Joshua Tree, whatever. And the goal today is keep the rental arbitrage. It's still good, still makes money. Keep the co-hosting, but take both of those business models and aim them along with a hotel fund at buying, sourcing, developing, cash flowing, refinancing hotels that look, act, and feel like Airbnbs. And that's the future for us.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And that is like, for example, there's a local guy here, Rich Summers. That's
Of
something
course. Yeah, shout out to Rich.
that are you part of his mastermind?
Actually, not yet, but it's definitely
Not
something that we're
because I
thinking
think
about.
that's also something that he touches on. But you know, but I keep seeing it more and more that even our investor clients here at the company, they're buying more properties that are turning into hotels
Yep.
for all these different purposes.
Right.
Is that what you're seeing down the road as the future for Airbnbs? Like
Yes.
maybe like boutique hotels as opposed to Airbnbs, or like what are you seeing down there as far as Airbnbs in the next 5 years are going to look like this? What are you seeing down there?
To me, it's both and rather than either or. It's a very different end user. So for me, when I travel by myself, I stay in a hotel. I can count on the cleanliness. I like the ease of access. There's usually a gym on site. It's
Mhm.
quick, it's easy, right? But anytime it's six or more, it's an Airbnb. And so the goal for us and all of our clients and investors is both. Let's look for world-class experiential destination Airbnbs that are never going to go out of style. I mean,
Right.
seriously, 30 million visitors come into San Diego every year. How many of them
Yeah.
are families? How many of them are groups? And they want to stay in a big house together and create some memories. That is not going anywhere. It's been around since the freaking 20s. Mission
Yeah,
Beach. I mean, how
exactly.
old is Mission Beach, right? Those houses have been there
Hundreds of
forever.
years. Yeah.
Right. But then also investing in this business model, which is the boutique hotel model, which is taking tired, outdated properties with old design and no technology and turning them into turnkey experiences for the end user and doing both at the same time. That's the goal.
No, that's awesome. And it's just a smart way of tackling it because you're diversifying yourself a little bit, but you're still like in the same lane.
Yep.
You're just diversifying yourself, and it has to be kind of like building avatars
That's
based on
exactly
on
right.
all right, this is my ideal client for this, so I'm going to build a system for that. This is my ideal client for that, so I'm going to build a system for that.
Nailed
No, I
it.
mean, I love it. Here in Southern California, you mentioned Joshua Tree earlier. What are like the hot spots that you're seeing, Airbnbs flourish, or just like, hey man, this market is super hot for Airbnbs. What are you seeing out there?
Coastal for sure. Well, and
Mhm.
that's my always number one target for Airbnbs. Not necessarily boutique hotels yet, but for sure Airbnbs, coastal.
Okay.
You can walk to the water, you're gonna do pretty good. It's very hard to do bad. You messed up. It's your
Yeah.
fault. If you did bad on a coastal Airbnb, it's your fault, right?
Yeah.
Anything rural that's by state parks, right? So Zion, Smoky Mountains, Joshua Tree, right? Anything that you can have kind of an insulated experience for the guest that also then goes to these national parks. That's not going anywhere, right? Things that are close to stadiums, things that are close to again, always think of the end user. Like, where do they want to be close to something that is going to be there for a long time and multiple different things, right? You don't want to be just relying on one thing. Perfect example is like Coachella Valley, right?
Yeah.
Like, I probably wouldn't invest in Coachella Valley. All it takes is one sandstorm or one issue to knock those events out, and then you lost your revenue for the year, right?
Yeah,
Like
that's
things that
true.
have different reasons why people are going there every year, all year. Like look at perfect example like Vail, right? Or Park
Right.
City, Utah. I've been to Park
Yeah.
City in the summer. I've been to Park City in the winter.
Beautiful places. Yeah.
Year round, you're going to go there. So markets like that that have different draws all year long, that's where you want to invest.
What about your home turf? What about Florida? Because
Let's
you know,
go. Love South Florida, man. So here's the thing.
yeah.
I've been through many hurricanes, right? Like Hurricane Andrew destroyed my house. Shout out to anyone that was there in the early 90s.
Yeah,
So I do have a little bit of PTSD from the hurricanes, and
sure.
I'm waiting on the next big one to happen. But I think South Florida, COVID was great to South Florida. It really caused this huge boom. I don't see
Hmm.
Miami slowing down anytime soon. The
Yeah.
problem with Miami is it's overdeveloped with studios and one bedrooms. So
Mm.
you are going to see a slowdown in demand, and I think housing prices are actually starting to go down for the first time in a while.
Interesting. Okay.
Single family homes, dude, those are never like once they went over 1 million, it's going to take a long time for them ever to go under 1 million. I'm bullish on South
Right.
Florida, Fort Lauderdale,
Right.
Pompano Beach, Golden Beach, anything like north of North Beach, all the way up to like I would say West Palm Beach. I'm bullish on that whole area.
What about like Clearwater, Tampa, all those areas?
Fantastic. All those are great.
Nice.
Again, the problem is you have to look at the micro, right? Like what's the regulation looking like? So for example, like Miami, you're not supposed to do Airbnb. Like
Mm.
you're not
Okay.
supposed. But there's unincorporated Miami where you can do Airbnb.
Mm,
Again,
interesting.
anything north, right? So like I think it's Golden Beach is the cutoff, and anything north of that is, like Sunny Isles. Now, but then each municipality has its own different things. So you always got to know like what is the regulation in the municipality that I'm in. But yeah, there's a ton of opportunity out there.
Is there is there a price point that is kind of like a sweet spot for all right if you're and I know that like San Diego is its own animal, it's like we have our the average home price is $1 million pretty much,
Yeah.
but is there like a sweet spot where you're like, hey, I would recommend you investing in on an Airbnb like up to 3 million, 4 million, because then it gets it kind of goes back to the whole experience thing that you said. It could be a $2 million property, but then you dump another million on the property, you create this whole experience around the property, and now is there like a rule of thumb where you're like, hey, you shouldn't really go past this kind of dollar amount, or not really?
It's tough to say, Carlos. Every deal is different, and I think it all depends on the data. And so, AirDNA, there's a Rabu, there's a bunch of sources out there where you can see, hey, are there other like super Airbnbs? I think Bill Faith coined that term. Shout out to Bill. Are there other super Airbnbs in this
Mm,
market? And what amenities do they have? What's their
right.
bedroom count, and what are they making? Right. So as long as I have something now. You could also be the pioneer. You could go to a market that has no super Airbnbs and swing for the fences. I haven't done that, but there are people that do that and find a lot of success. But I don't think there's a hard and fast rule. I think for me, if I was going to invest that much money, I would find the most value add property that I can, right? I wouldn't buy like new construction, turnkey, $4 million property and add a hot tub. I wouldn't do that. I'd rather buy a 1 million and add 1 million if I have to, because
Yeah.
now you're forcing appreciation in multiple different ways.
Mhm.
And like your downside is, all right, this didn't work as an Airbnb, but I can still flip this for a really good amount. So I would
Right.
always recommend a much higher spend in the value add than the purchase price.
Yeah, it just gives you more options,
Yeah.
when it comes to that. No, absolutely. So you currently manage like a crazy amount of Airbnbs, right? I mean, like north of like 300 or something like that,
Two
right?
over 250. Yeah, yeah.
Over 250.
Yeah.
And do you personally own some Airbnbs also, or?
The ones I'm developing. And
Okay,
I'm also like a limited partner in several and co-GP in some that are being developed as well.
gotcha. So if you were starting from day one, today, July 2025,
Yeah.
and you wanted to get into the Airbnb, not so much as a business as you know your company does, but more as an investor, what would you do? What would you try and tackle? What price point? Let's say that, because again, San Diego is an anomaly, but I know that some areas in other parts of the country you can get a great property for 300,000. What are some of the things that you will look for, and what will be like your ideal investment if this was like day one for you?
Love it. The unicorn deals, right? So
Yeah.
there's really two.
Right.
In commercial, so there's commercial and residential, right? If it was commercial, it would be distressed office that is already seismically retrofitted in a good location where I can convert it into hotel use for very
Mm,
limited construction, so I don't have to like add crazy steel or have a crane or do any kind of like crazy stuff to it, and making sure it's hotel by right, and then cash flow that as an Airbnb, force the appreciation, get a cash out refi, and make a ton of money, right? That's like one unicorn. And I'm doing that. We're currently raising money for that. Credit investors hit me up. The other model would be residential, find a big lot of land that has a single family home on it, especially in San Diego, do the
mhm.
ADU play, which I'm sure you know all about.
Yep.
Junior ADUs are, I think it's junior, I forget the exact specification, are now allowed to be short-term rentals as well. So you build a
Mm,
bunch of ADUs, you short-term rental them, you do mid-term rentals in the ones that you can't do short-term rentals on, and now you basically built like a little hotel on a residential
nice.
property. Same thing, force appreciation, cash out refi, do it again.
Yeah. I love it. I love it, man. By the way, do you guys also do midterm rentals or
Yeah,
that's
absolutely. So if
okay?
you're, and any host that's listening, if you're not doing midterm rentals, you are leaving a ton of money on the table. I used to
Yeah.
be closed-minded to it back in like 2022, but you have to do it to be competitive today, especially in the slow season. So anything I have that's not an ADU, we do short-term, midterm rentals almost every month except for summer. Yeah, we
Good.
allow it. In other words, we allow it. So like we'll
Yeah.
set pricing stacks and we'll have multiple different verticals in our pricing customizations where if somebody books, let's say a 40-day stay, it'll block the short-term rentals on that property, but the price point is such that we didn't lose any money apples to apples. Does that make
Mm,
sense? Yeah,
yeah.
so we give the
No,
user both options, but each one is profitable.
gotcha. No, that's awesome, man. What are some of the give me your top two horror stories
Oh
that
man.
you've experienced I was talking to a buddy of mine that he owns a bunch of Airbnbs in Mexico. And we're on the phone. He's like, dude, I gotta go, man. I gotta let you go. I'm in the middle of something. I'm like, what are you in the middle of? You're semi-retired. Turns out that the guy owns several Airbnbs and a guy got killed in
Oh my
one of
goodness.
them.
Oh my
So
God.
it's like, yeah, and he's like, the government won't let go of my Airbnb for like 6 months till
Oh
they
my God.
finish the investigation, and I have to go hire attorneys and all that stuff because the property otherwise is just gonna sit there. So I mean,
Terrible.
that is a horror story, but I'm sure that you got some. Give me your top two.
Okay. Well, for the listener, I just want to also say you never hear these horror stories about hotels. So anyone that's listening to all this about Airbnb, just remember there's a lot of ad spend. There's a lot of dollar spend from the hotel lobbies that are trying to get you afraid to do Airbnb. So just keep that in mind, all right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, horror story number one, it was actually my first Airbnb. And it was my baby. I put everything into it. I bought all the furniture myself and built it all. And, anyone that hosts out there, you remember your first Airbnb. You put way too much care into it. And this guest checks in, and about a day or two after he got there, he calls me and he's like, "Hey, the toilet's busted. Can you come fix it?" So I come by and I walk in, and all of the artwork is taken down off the walls. There are blankets and sheets everywhere, like covering all of the walls, all of the windows, everywhere. There
Oh,
are bowls of drugs everywhere, right? Like,
oh
I didn't want to touch
Jesus.
it. I don't know what it was. It was crazy. I
Right.
go upstairs, and it's even worse. There's suitcases and costumes and outfits and lighting and
Oh,
cameras. So clearly, they were doing something illegal there.
yeah.
I call the guest and I'm like, "Hey man, you knew I was coming here. You didn't think to like hide any of this? Like, what were
Yeah.
you thinking?" He's like,
Let me
"Oh
just put it away.
yeah." He's like, "Oh, it's just me and my wife, and we like to have fun while we travel." I'm like, "Dude, get the hell out of here." So call the cops,
Yeah.
call Airbnb. All this stuff gets thrown outside, and Airbnb was kind enough to like give me enough money to like replace the couch, replace some of the stuff. And yeah, it was my first Airbnb. I must have been like 3 weeks into the game. So
Right.
that was a bad one. That was a bad one. Yeah.
Yeah, Jesus, yeah, man. It's yeah, there's all sorts of stories, but like you said, it's hotels, you see stuff
Oh my God.
10,000 times worse. But it's thank you so much, Evan, for jumping on the call, man. I think it's such a key element having for investors out there, having someone like you on their corner, because especially with the short-term rental loophole. I was having a conversation with a CPA the other day, and
Mm.
she called it the real estate professional status is ugly brother.
Mm. Mm.
So with the short-term rental loophole,
Yeah,
you can take a lot of these losses that you can get through cost segregation.
let's
uh,
go.
you can take those losses and really use them to offset other sources of income, as opposed to just like if it's just a regular traditional real estate investment where you have a 12-month long-term tenant.
Mhm.
Then you're just and if you have your W-2 job, then you're just subject to tackling your passive wins from your passive income from those passive losses. But if
Right.
you're doing the whole short-term rental loophole, which I dislike the word loophole, because it's
Right.
it's something that's been
Not
around
even
for
legal.
ages.
Yeah, it's like completely fine and legal. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's something
The
that's
hack.
been around for
It's
ages.
the
It's
hack.
just
Yeah.
yeah, it's just good for social media, I guess.
Right.
But you mix that with hey, you know what, I want to buy an Airbnb so that I can I'm a high W2 income earner. I want to get an Airbnb so that I can offset a little bit more of my income, and at the end of the day keep a little bit more of the money that I make. Well,
Mm.
great. Well, I don't know anything about Airbnbs, or in many cases it's like for example, like hey, I live in San Diego and I really like the Joshua Tree Market, but I don't want to be driving every
Mm.
single time a guest leaves,
Mm.
just so that I can go change the sheets and
Right.
wash the towels.
Yeah.
So how do I go about that? So being able to scale that business, by working with someone like you, Evan. I mean, I think it's critical, especially if you say, hey, we do this in different parts of California, so and in Florida and even in Mexico. So you can really uh, put yourself in a position where you can start building your generational wealth, take advantage of accelerated depreciation, use that short-term rental loophole, and then at the end of the day, not having to deal with the headache of doing everything yourself, number one. And number two, be able to invest in a neighborhood that maybe, like, for example, maybe right now your investment situation is like, hey, San Diego's kind of tight for my possibilities right now, but I'll go to Joshua Tree, I'll go here, I'll go there, and then someone like Evan can take the heavy lifting from there, and really help you so that you're just hanging out and still spending time with your family, and really tackle this as a passive strategy, as opposed to trying to get into this for the passive game, and then you're running around like a headless chicken. Right.
Exactly. Couldn't have said it better myself.
No, absolutely, man. So give us some thoughts on closing. What's in the store? What's in store for your company, for you and your company in the future? Where are you guys seeing the Airbnb game in the next 24 to 48, 50, 60 months? What are you guys seeing out there? Just give us your final thoughts on all that.
So what I would say to new people coming into the space is, alone you go faster, but together you go farther. We are raising money right now to invest in these world-class experiential Airbnbs. And for the ability to invest with other people, you're going to get access to returns that you couldn't get on your own, right? If someone tried to buy a single family home here in San Diego, their 20% down payment or whatever kind of loan they do, it's just going to tie up all their capital and they're never going to get the returns that they need versus pooling your money with other people. You can buy more, and that is the only truly passive way, because then you have operators like us that are doing all of the work and generating returns. So anybody out there that's looking to get into the space, happy to talk to you about what that looks like. And then our other avatars, people that do want to buy their own thing or have their own thing already and don't know how to cash flow it and don't know how to operate or manage it. That's the other people that we can help. So our goal is to help those two kinds of people, the people that want to just, a dentist, doctor's lawyer, whoever that just has 50, 100, whatever K that wants to invest, or somebody that has property or is buying property or selling property, but doesn't know how to make it pencil, and having Airbnb as the way to make it pencil. That's the people that we can help.
Dude, I love it. So many golden nuggets. Evan, I appreciate you jumping on the call. Before we wrap up, So just a quick Q&A. What kind of so you said that you were like a musician and
Oh
a
yeah.
singer. What was your genre? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so my stage name was Evan Charles, so people can just go on YouTube or Evan Charles Music
Ah,
and see all of that. But yeah, singer-songwriter, and it's still my passion. I have a piano in the other room, well, electric piano in the other room, and play all the time. And I made a
nice.
decision that I wanted it to be my vacation, not my vocation. I didn't want to do it for money anymore, and now I do it just whenever I want.
Yeah, I love it. And what genre? Like country or like what
A
whatever?
little bit of country, a little bit of like singer-songwriter. I would say like if you
Like
mix
folk?
Ed Sheeran with like Jason Mraz and a little
Ah,
bit of like Elton John, kind of those.
yeah.
It's very piano driven. A classically trained pianist. So a
Nice.
lot of piano was infused into my music.
Oh, I love it, man. Love it. Yeah, especially because we don't have a I'm starting to sound old. Like, oh, the good old days of music are behind us.
Unfortunately, it seems like that. Yeah,
Uh,
unfortunately.
Evan, what's a good way someone can get a hold of you? Email, phone number, Instagram, social media, all that good stuff.
So I'm most active on Instagram, and it's just the Evan Rundle. And yeah, hit me up, DM me. Happy to help. And if you just have questions on Airbnb, short-term rentals, hotels, whatever I can do to add value.
Perfect. Awesome, man. Thank you so much again for jumping on the call. I know that you have a busy schedule, man. So I appreciate you setting some time aside and we got to do another one and just break down. We'll,
Do
we'll do
it.
like a full episode on just marketing and marketing funnel strategies and all that good stuff.
Let's run it.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much.
Carlos, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.